All right. Hey, good morning, YouTube. How's everybody doing? It's fine Friday morning. Hope it finds you well, in good health, and ready for the weekend. What else could you ask for? Weather looking fairly decent, I guess. Just some scattered showers and whatnot out there. Doesn't look like anything major is kicking in right now. That could all change in 6 hours, right? But if you're walking out the door right now, doesn't look like much to be concerned about. So give us a minute here, people to join in. Come over and check in with us. But on the weather side, this forecast outlook for the winter for El Nino popped up. So what does that mean? Really looking down the next 6 months or so. It's interesting. I just heard a weather guy say recently in our area, it appears that El Nino is not as significant as they might have thought. It's like we're right in the middle band, and Southern California, Southern Nevada, that area, it affects a lot, and north of us, like Oregon and Washington, it affects, but we're like in the band where it doesn't really matter. It's more just about the jet stream for us. So that was interesting. It was good information. That's based upon past histories more so than anything. But with El Nino coming, let's hear what they're saying here. Give it a second.
In La Nina. And right now, as we look into the Pacific, and we're looking at the central and also the eastern Pacific, right around the equator, what we're seeing here are signs that we could be heading into an El Nino. Right now, we are in a neutral stage, but we've been seeing the waters in this area warming. And with that, that's giving us an indication that we could continue to see warming. And as we go into the fall and winter, notice how it becomes more likely that we could see an El Nino. Notice the red bars going above 50% as we get into September, October, November. And also you can see that continues that trend as we work our way into the winter. So yes, these have large scale impacts on the weather and the climate. So the trend here could mean that we might see a wetter than average go at it for parts of Florida and the Gulf Coast. And also, if we head into El Nino, warmer than average in the west and also the northern U.S.
All right, so there's that outlook. Warning for you if you're looking forward to this winter. It's interesting how they forecast what's happening in the Pacific to forecast over what happens in the Gulf and the Atlantic. It's considered that significant. And obviously it's been a long-standing historical issue getting its name like that. Hey, good morning, Walter. How's it going? Uncle Al, how's it doing? Thanks for joining us. The Panhandle. You're in the Panhandle, really, Dad Bullfrog? It looks like right now there's some of the very top tippity top up there, where the panhandles of Oklahoma, Texas come together. Thanks for asking. But it looks like you got all that scattered rain out there in Arizona, New Mexico coming your way. So you'll probably get something. Hopefully you don't get those strong storms like last week that Wes S ran into and whatnot. But I didn't know you were in Tejas there, Uncle Al. Or are you just going there? Are you going on a visit? All right. So getting into some of the news, following up on some stuff. So let's start off, I guess, here. Trump has proposed tariff on Chinese goods. So Walmart's got to be concerned. pretty much everybody shops at Walmart at some point in time. It does seem like if you're not in Walmart, you're in Amazon, and how much of that comes from China. So it would be on its 25% tariff. It's up to $50 billion in goods. Let's see what exactly it's on. It's in response to intellectual property theft, which has been an ongoing issue with lots of countries. Chinese kind of industrialized it, I guess you'd say. And it's kind of also semantics in some ways, where we see it as intellectual property theft. They see it as just copying. It's not the same ethical standpoint in some concerns when they take stuff and re-engineer it and make it their own. Moving on down. China's proposing retaliation. Its Commerce Ministry said it would impose tariffs immediately at the same scale. Beijing also added that all previously agreed to trade negotiations are no longer valid. This is very interesting, coming off the heels of that North Korea thing, because like I've said many times, I really think China controls North Korea in the long run, so we'll see how that shakes out. It's 818 items worth about $34 billion. And this begins on July 6th. Separate measures affecting 284 products and about $16 billion take effect following review and public comment. So if you want to keep your Chinese widgets, you need to contact Federal Trade Commission or whoever's doing that review. Yeah, trade representatives. Anyway. Lots of stuff might be disappearing from the shelves shortly. They don't say exactly what yet. Come on, can we get a better idea what they're talking about? And this might be a more truer agenda here in this paragraph. They say China's discontent with the tariffs could also affect another key Trump effort, the push to get North Korea to abandon its nuclear and missile programs. Getting Pyongyang to agree to firm denuclearization will rely in large part on the application of international economic sanctions. So yeah, there's probably a higher agenda than just intellectual copying right issues, because those have been going on for a long time. That, you know, that train left the building a long time ago. It was hard to stop, but if you're trying to get it, use it as a wedge issue to get into other issues, might be a better approach. Reviewing the summit from this week. Doesn't say exactly what's in the tariff list here, like what kind of items, what kind of commodities or anything. That's the really important stuff, because we had steel and aluminum earlier. We talked about that, but this article doesn't talk about what these goods and items. It says 818 items, but not like a broad what the categories are. So more to follow, I guess. Not totally helpful there, CNBC. Not the news I was trying to find. The market is falling, they're saying, as a result of this, but the market could fall for any reason. They just make up why it moves, it seems like. Hey, good morning, Scotsman. How's it going? Well, you bring up a good point, Walter. Yeah, maybe we should put the tariffs on things that are actually harming people. The things that have popped up. Rice, like totally illegitimate things, right? There's been some odd ones, for sure. Checking in on our Venezuela situation, such as it continues to devolve into chaos, and they should have had their elections right now already. I believe we're past that time. I don't remember seeing a story that they had them though. Maybe it's in August. Maybe I'm not. Maybe it'll cover it in this article. But workers fleeing, thieves looting, Venezuela oil giant, which they don't name them right off the top here. I was trying to remember what the name of their company was that does oil out of Venezuela. It escapes me. Why don't they mention the name of the company right here? Thousands of workers are fleeing Venezuela's state-owned oil company, abandoning coveted jobs made worthless by the worst inflation in the world. And now the hemorrhaging is threatening the nation's chances of overcoming the long economic collapse. It's like Atlas Shrugged on a micro scale. Yeah, we showed that graphic of inflation chart last month, I think it was. Somebody did an analysis of that. It was like in the thousands, and the next closest was one of the African countries at like 100% Desperate oil workers and criminals are also stripping the oil company of vital equipment, vehicles, pumps, copper wiring, carrying off whatever they can to take money. Crippling the company that has been teetering for years, yada, yada. Yeah, it's in bad shape. Yeah, he was reelected last month. So the presidential election was last month, reelected by a majority, right? Everybody was so happy. Where the competition was barred, as it says here. While Maduro has firm control over the country, Venezuela is on its knees economically, bucked by hyperinflation, mismanagement, widespread hunger, political strife, devastating, all the bad stuff, devastating shortages of medicine, and exodus of well over 1 million people. Yeah, there was a story this week earlier that 1 million people had went to Colombia alone from Venezuela. Other countries are really getting fed up with the whole situation. Yeah, Valero Divolfrog. There you go. I think that's correct. Yeah, I don't know why they didn't say it in here. They just say the state-owned oil company, like everybody's supposed to know or something. Or this is WRAL. That's out of Chicago, correct? But oil is virtually the only source of hard currency for the nation. But each month, Venezuela produces less of it. Okay, here's the Venezuela name. Maybe Valero is what we know about, but here they call it Petroles de Venezuela, known as PDVSA, used to be a ticket to the Venezuelan dream. No more. Yeah, that's a pretty bad sign. Here, this is Carlos Navas, 37, worked on a drilling crew outside El Tegri. He has a house, he had a house, air conditioning, a car. He never imagined he might not make enough money to buy food for his wife and 3 kids. But he quit his job late last year because he couldn't live on what had become starvation wages. It's pretty bad when your biggest export production part of the economy can't even feed the people that are working in it. So it looks like he went to go work in the gold mines to the east. And eventually he wanted to go to Ecuador or Peru, where he could follow a stampede of fellow Venezuelans fleeing the country's economic cataclysm. Inflation in Venezuela is projected to reach an astounding 13,000%. Hey, you can't even comprehend that type of inflation here. Navas' monthly salary as a worker was barely enough to buy a whole chicken or 2 pounds of beef. But with prices going up so quickly, it buys even less now. State oil output is its lowest level in 30 years. My goodness, it's a mess. So Venezuela is definitely not getting better after the election. It's a pretty long article. It goes on. Anecdotal evidence, other evidence, all the oil company issues. You can check it out. It's in your links below. Closes out the last part of the article. One worker with more than 30 years experience who recently retired her job as a oil export and shipment coordinator type person, it looks like, said when she started she made the equivalent of about $1,700 a month. The company paid for her to study abroad. Now on her monthly salary she couldn't buy 2 cartons of eggs. It's bad. So yeah, Venezuela's looking up. Maybe it might be a good time just to go buy out the whole country and kick Maduro to the curb. Might be a good job. Yeah, sounds like California, right? Bullfrog. Yeah, we've been predicting the California collapse for a while, so we'll see how that works out. Also, other things we've been tracking here, the Cape Town water crisis in South Africa. The government has lifted its state of emergency. Speaking of something that ties in with California, California just recently put out that basically legislation for water conservation and efforts to save LA, essentially, because they're the ones dragging everybody down. So they have lifted their state of emergency based upon the drought, and they're not renewing that state of emergency. So what does that mean? The government's not bringing in water, not paying for water, etc. Couple of tweets from the government, yada yada. The government had accessed over 400 Rahimbi, so I can't say millions of dollars, 400 million Rahimbi. They're equivalent to dollars for disaster grants for water augmentation plans and other relief projects. So they've put a lot in motion during this time. All the region's dams are better off than they were in the same period in 2017. However, the threat of a day zero has not disappeared completely, and water restrictions remain in place. So I don't know what level 6B is. I've seen where they described what each level means, but I'm not sure what 6B exactly is. So that's the end of the article, kind of abruptly. So this is a state of emergency, but there's still restrictions on the water usage. They haven't still mentioned in any current articles about their desalinization that several articles referred to back in the March-April timeframe. One should be online right now, and there's 2 others in the works for desalinization plants right there in Cape Town, but they don't mention them here. Interesting. but another direct story of that could affect California soon. I guess we'll just watch what happens in South Africa. The same thing will be happening in California soon, or Venezuela. Lots of foreign examples. Socialism takes hold, doesn't work out for anybody. Yeah, yeah, Uncle Al, we've talked about the land grab and the basically communist takeover of the land uh, for a couple months now. And not only, it's not even a race issue anymore. There was a couple articles in the last couple of weeks. The government's going after all the land. Doesn't matter if you're a black farmer or a white farmer. They were showing just a communistic urge to take it over all means of farming. All right, one more. Next up, this is kind of an interesting story. Going off of the Catalonian experience, the Basque separatists have kind of backed off their ambition for secession, it looks like. Catalonia has been basically in over a year process of trying to get independence through different means, with the Spanish government essentially invading Catalonia and taking over and running the show against their will. But in the Basque region, which has had tensions and separatist ideas for a long time, I mean, yeah, this goes back a long, long time. Seem to have toned it down, according to this article. So earlier this month, tens of thousands of people linked hands across the Basque country, forming a human chain that stretched 124 miles from the coastal town of San Sebastian to the capital Vitoria, to demand a referendum on the region's political future. The effort was to get referendums called the Right to Decide, falling less than a year after Catalonia's effort to do the same. But it looks like they're saying here it's unlikely to even get that far. Unlike Catalonia, a northeast region of 7 million, Basque country, most residents of Basque oppose independence. A December poll found that just 14% of respondents wanted independence and just 17% felt only Basque and not Spanish. We all know how polls work, though. I'm pretty sure during the Catalonian experience that the polls weren't exactly accurate from what you were seeing in the streets. When you can get an effort to a human chain of 124 miles, that's not that small of a minority. That's a much bigger number than 14%, I would think. At least it's a more active and a more that's some serious participation going on there. That's some dedication to do that. That's a movement. It doesn't really matter if only 14% are willing to tell somebody something when they're probably nervous about owning up to it to begin with, based upon the Spanish reaction to Catalonia. So people are less likely to be honest about it anyway. So I don't know that I would take those poll numbers too literally. Yeah, the bloody history of separatism in the Basque country, separatist terrorist called, I can't say it in Basque, I'd mess, but it's called the Basque Homeland and Freedom, better known as the ETA, killed 800 politicians between 1960 and 2010 when they had a ceasefire with the government. I knew that had a pretty long history of activism, but I didn't know it went back. I didn't know it was only ended in 2010. I thought it ended before that. 800 politicians is a pretty good toll. they tend to avoid the word independence in discussions and refer to the right to decide. Unilateral independence from Spain is not viable, they say. President of the Basque National Party. So going along again, a California example, the secession movement in California right now, and also with the split up of California just getting on the ballot for this November to split California into 3 states. The state of Jefferson really needs to get moving. See, now they're going to start basing things on feelings that are going to mess up. He says here, we have to construct the country for everyone, including for those who feel Spanish. We don't want a closed project or a private club where, oh, you consider yourself Basque or no. The party was founded in 1895 in hopes of creating an independent state that would include part of southern France, northern Spain, and the 3 provinces that make up Basque country today. It never materialized, but Basque country did gain more self-rule than any of Spain's other so-called autonomous regions. Nationalist sentiment swelled during the dictatorship of Franco, who banned regional languages. Basques were also forced to take Spanish names instead. Yeah, there's a huge Basque community here in northern Nevada as part of the result of some of that activity. Franco died in 1975. The Basques received a series of benefits from the transition government. Most important was the 1979 Statute of Autonomy, which laid out governmental structure of the region, explicitly recognized the existence of a separate Basque identity. Gives the Basque a taxation system that gives it enormous economic independence. The region collects its own taxes, determines how much it will send back to the central government, depending on how much Spain has spent in the region. Nearly all other regions send all their taxes to Spain, which redistributes the money according to the economic needs of the country. So it's like the mob, like all the other governments. So the Basques are going in the right direction. They just got to get over the hump here, it looks like. That's one of California. You hear a lot of the left-wing Californians speaking about all the taxes they pay that never come back to California. You hear that is one of their big arguments. Even though they're proponents for central government, just not when they're the victim of central government, I guess you would say. But that's one of the things you hear the California secessionists talking about is taxes. It's like, wow, shocker. Yeah. Why do you think the state of Jefferson wants to get out of California? Taxes, among other things, and wasted resources. And no common culture, common bond. A poll in February found that 41% of Catalans supported independence. That's after almost a year of up and down battle with the government. So it goes on to some of the history here. Let's see, it closes out. Métis, I can't even say this name. Paragazunda was a socialist member of the local council in the town of Urdaneta, an outspoken opponent of the militants. ETA killed her brother, a police officer, in 2003. She has faced frequent death threats and started taking taxis instead of driving her own car. She's now a member of the European Parliament. She said any talk of succession, including the right to decide, any talk of succession, including the right to decide, recalls that time and contaminates the region's politics with a toxic current. Well, she's a socialist. Of course she's going to think like that. So that's interesting, and lots of parallels you can draw with the California movements right now going on. That's interesting. Hey, El Chavez, good morning. How you doing? Your father came over for Franco's Spain. Congratulations, you made it. Barry Wood, good morning. How's it going? Everything good up your way? So does anybody have anything they else want to throw on the radar here? That's kind of our rundown. Don't go to Venezuela is probably number one on the list. Watch out for El Nino this winter, especially those of you on the East Coast. Sounds like the Gulf Coast. You might have the biggest effects. Other than that, I guess everybody should go out and have a good day. Hey, Land Run 89, thanks for checking in. What's up? What does the radar in the front mean? Yeah, Bullfrog, I'm not sure about the whole. I mean, LA and the Bay Area is a good start, but they've contaminated so many areas that extend beyond them. It's hard to say. I mean, you got to get rid of Sacramento, the center of confusion out of there, and the politics and pretty much everything. Once you, I mean, because Sacramento's right next to Berkeley, that place is a disaster waiting to happen with all the socialist views there, etc. Yeah, I would just be happy if the state of Jefferson could form and let the rest of California go do whatever it's going to do. All the good stuff's in Jefferson anyway. Hey, good morning, Castaway. How's it going down there? Were you out there in down under? Alicia Clegg has joined us, hoping for a good day. Go out and have a good day. Make it happen. What do you mean hoping? Yeah, Barry. Well, I don't know if it's amazing. It's bizarre though. I mean, you hear the stories about needles on the streets, people urinating and everything in the streets, all the homeless and all the other problems, but yet they try to hold it up as some of this great bastion of advancement of humankind and everything. Like, you people have lost your mind. People have lost your mind. Berkeley brainwashing, right? Chavez says, yeah, we talked about the water restrictions earlier last week, Chavez. And if you read closely, what Brown signed was it gives water areas, water conservation districts, water districts the authority to implement controls, with the goal being 55 gallons in like 2022 or something. It's funny that it isn't focused on the places where it needs to be, like LA being primary number one. It doesn't address a lot of problems, but they're going to try to solve it this way. But like I was commenting on that when we originally talked about it, it's like, they're not going to stop people from watering their grass in Malibu. Are you kidding me? That ain't going to happen. It's a feel good bill that's going to hurt people that they can drop the hammer on, but the people that can afford to pay their way out are going to be able to pay their way out. And the biggest issue is LA is unsustainable, I think. But it is interesting that number matches up with what we were just talking about earlier with the Cape Town water crisis. That number is almost exactly what Cape Town was at when they were on the verge of severe water rationing, was 55 gallons per person. And then that's the number that California came up with as part of their first round of implementation. Like, they're already at that level of emergency, I guess you would say. So I think it's interesting. The biggest thing is how they implemented these water restrictions at that emergency level that Cape Town just got to after over a year of drought. And they're trying to impose that statewide. There's no, but like I said, initially it does give water districts a lot of leverage and leeway on how they do that. Walter says if California split up, Southern California would be a war in China, for Mexico and China over it. I don't think Mexico would stand up a chance against a war against anybody, other than I guess that Tijuana is right there and they're right next to it. It might be of an advantage for them. It'd be a tough haul for them. It depends on how that independence worked out, but I don't know that we would move our naval base out of San Diego. They'd have to still get through that, etc. Land Run said you can buy 55 gallons of urethane casting resin, but you can't keep 55 gallons of rainwater. Is that maybe in California? I guess is that the California stance? Well, I know it's illegal to collect rainwater in Oregon, of all places. There's several places where it's illegal, but there's several places that have, like Nevada, just the last legislative period codified the right to collect rainwater. That was good, even though we don't get a whole lot of rainwater, but at least they saw the need to be able to be self-sustaining. At least that was put in there. Draw that parallel, Walter, Fort Sumter to San Diego. You think there's just, but that wasn't China and Mexico invading. That was just the locals telling the Federals to get out. Okay, Bullfrog, that makes more sense, Uncle Al. I thought you lived somewhere like that. So you live in San Bernardino County, something like that, right? You need to collect all the rainwater you can if possible. Yeah, Barry, it's a contagion. I think it was a good way to put it. People that like to live in small boxes on top of each other seem to have the same disease. I think that's part of the problem. Um, we talked about last month with the whole statement that there's too many people on the planet and the population control agenda. But there's that meme that says you could fit everybody in the world in Alaska on 2 acres and still have room left over. And I did the math on that, and it's true. You could take all the people in the world and put them in Alaska, and everybody would have 2 acres. And that doesn't count for families who would live together. Stuff like if people would just go out and live on the land, we would be so much better off. But we've been convinced that we all need to live on top of each other and etc. And it's a bad state of affairs there. What about car washes and hotels? I'm not sure. We'd have to look more into that, Chavez. I'm not in California, so I didn't concern myself too much. It is concerning that they would make it such a blanket restriction, because really, if they would just control LA County and put some serious restrictions on LA County, they could go a long way to preventing a lot of their problems. But their problem has always been they've always tried to get everybody else to solve their problems for them, the easy way out. What's up, Locked and Loaded? Yeah, illegal to correct. Yeah, it's more than one place. It's illegal too, Locked and Loaded. It's not just like one place. But it's funny that a place like Oregon that gets tons of rain says it's illegal to collect rainwater. It isn't. It's fairly insane. It's just, how much. It's like the whole thing. You can't have a pond on your property. The EPA thinking they can come in and regulate a pond that you've made on your property and stuff. It's insane. Good morning, Practical Outdoorist. How's things out your way? Oh, that's cool, Barry. Encourages it. You don't hear that very much. I would say I would venture to say, Barry, that your city is probably more likely a town. I don't know if there's anything that's really a city that has that much common sense. I would say it's probably a town by most of our classifications. Yeah, somebody was breaking down the numbers. When you have 55 gallons a day per person, that it goes away quick. And there was a story also about like basically you couldn't do laundry and your dishes on the same day or take a shower and etc. Like you'd be really limited in your use. But when it comes to your if you're talking about preparedness and planning for the worst, like how much water, they talk about a gallon per day per 5 gallons a day per person. Like that goes quick. When you have to, if you think about that in relationship to that water restriction too. Yeah, 5,000 gallons would be a good start there, Barry. That'd be a good save up plan. Yeah, practical outdoors. The weather looked good for the most part. Scattered showers and stuff out there in various places, but nothing too severe. It didn't look like anywhere. So the weather's looking up for pretty much everybody. Yeah, Walter, maybe the Californians lack from a ability to have constructive ideas, I guess. They just buy, what they've done is they've bought their way out. They just pay to steal the money from the Sierra, the Eastern Sierra, Lake Mead, the Colorado River. They've just been able to get away with buying their way out of things for so long that they keep doing that instead of actually solving. They're not letting free market prices determine, because if you actually priced water in LA what it should be priced, the people wouldn't be able to live there. Most of them, it would be unaffordable for a lot of the people that live there. Things like that. Like if it cost what it needed to, you wouldn't be able to. LA wouldn't be nearly the size it is population wise. But they keep funding it from the government level to making it unsustainable. Hey, a kayaking trip sounds like fun. That's no doubt. That'd be a good time. I was looking to see if there was a gun show this weekend. I don't think we have one. Supposed to be clear weather out here, though. Hey, everybody. Well, I got to roll out. Thanks for dropping in. Hey, there's a snapshot of your weather. For anybody. I guess if you're in Winnipeg, is a bad location. I don't know that we have anybody watching from Winnipeg. Stands out there in the Toronto area, but nobody's in the Winnipeg area, I don't think. So you'll have a good weekend. We'll see you in the morning if you want to drop by. Otherwise, stay alert, stay alive, live free.